Hey everyone, imagine finding a hidden treasure in the desert. Well, that's kind of what happened with the Gospel of Thomas. This book, filled with sayings people believe Jesus said, was hidden in the Egyptian desert for centuries. When it was rediscovered in 1945 near Nag Hammadi, it was a huge deal for people who study the Bible. This wasn't just any old discovery. The texts found at Nag Hammadi, including the Gospel of Thomas, showed us a different side of early Christianity, one that wasn't as well known. The discovery was super cool for a few reasons. The desert sand kept a bunch of early Christian writings safe, like Gospels, stories about the end of the world, and letters. One of these was a Coptic translation of the Gospel of Thomas, which people only knew about from small pieces before. This discovery helped us understand how many different beliefs and practices early Christians had. Scholars think the Gospel of Thomas was written sometime between the years 100 and 200. We're still figuring out how it relates to the Gospels in the Bible. Some people think it's really old and might even be connected to the stories in the New Testament Gospels. This discovery changed how we think about how Christian beliefs developed. It gave us a new way to look at what Jesus taught, one that's pretty different from what we read in the Bible. The Gospel of Thomas shows us a time when people understood Jesus' message in different ways. Let's talk about what's inside the Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospel of Thomas doesn't tell a story. It doesn't talk about Jesus' life, death, and resurrection in order. Instead, it's like a collection of 114 sayings that people believe Jesus said. These sayings are often puzzling and make you think, and they cover all sorts of topics. The Gospel of Thomas is just a list of sayings that people say are from Jesus. These sayings aren't in a story or timeline, they're just individual pieces of wisdom. Each saying gives us a little peek into what Jesus taught. The sayings talk about different things like God's kingdom, what it means to be a true follower of Jesus, and why it's important to be wise. Many sayings focus on knowing yourself and understanding spiritual things to be saved. God's kingdom, which is a really important idea in what Jesus taught, is often described as something inside you, not something that will happen in the future. Because the Gospel of Thomas is written and organized so differently, people understand it in different ways. Some scholars think it shows us a very early version of Christianity, maybe even older than some of the Gospels in the Bible. Others think it came later and developed separately. The Gospel of Thomas is often linked to Gnosticism, which was a bunch of different religious groups around the first few centuries AD. Gnostics believed that secret spiritual knowledge called gnosis was the key to being saved. Gnostic beliefs and practices were all over the place, but they were often different from what would become regular Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas has some things in common with Gnostic ideas, especially its focus on knowing yourself and finding wisdom inside. Both the Gospel of Thomas and Gnostic texts often talk about the world as having two parts, a spiritual world of light and a physical world of darkness. But remember, the Gospel of Thomas doesn't fit perfectly into any one box. While it's similar to Gnostic writings in some ways, it also has its own unique things. Scholars are still talking about how much Gnostic ideas influenced the Gospel of Thomas. Some think there's a strong connection, while others think it's not a big deal. So, why isn't the Gospel of Thomas in the Bible? The Bible, or the New Testament, has 27 books that most Christians see as super important. A few things led to the Gospel of Thomas being left out. One big reason is that it was probably written after the four Gospels in the Bible. While we don't know exactly when it was written, most scholars think it came later. By the time the Gospel of Thomas became popular, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were already widely accepted by Christians. Another reason is that the Gospel of Thomas teaches different things than what became regular Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas focuses on self-knowledge and inner wisdom. This is different from the growing focus on Jesus dying for our sins and the importance of faith in regular Christianity. Also, the Gospel of Thomas doesn't tell a story like the Gospels in the Bible do. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell the story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't have that kind of story, so it probably wasn't as interesting to the people who decided what went in the Bible. Even though it's not in the Bible, the Gospel of Thomas is still really important for understanding early Christianity. It gives us a different perspective on what Jesus taught and shows us that early Christians had lots of different beliefs. Finding the Gospel of Thomas changed how we think about the development of Christian beliefs and opened up new areas of research. The focus on self-knowledge and spiritual experience still speaks to many people today. Its sayings, which are often mysterious and can be interpreted in different ways, encourage us to think and reflect. The Gospel of Thomas reminds us that early Christianity wasn't just one thing. It was a dynamic and diverse movement with lots of different beliefs and practices. The Gospel of Thomas gives us a peek into this mix of early Christian beliefs, making us rethink what we know about this important time in Christian history.